When did book talk become political? Because I am so sick of seeing these reader unfollow parties.
So, I'm not sure when book talk became politic talk.
You guys, we are here to share books that we all enjoy. We're here to make friends, grow a community. We don't need hate in this community, and we don't need politics ruining a good thing that we have going.
Count 1, guilty. Count 2, guilty. Count 3, guilty. Count 4, guilty.
Recently, I've seen quite a few videos of people on BookTok talking about how they feel like reading is not political and it makes them uncomfortable when we bring political discourse into BookTok. And that statement made me a bit mad because I feel like if you're someone who's profiting off of BookTok and reading, it's such a misunderstood, misleading, and privileged take to have, and goes against what books have been historically and what they've represented. I thought it would be interesting to talk about that and why some people think like that and if it's really right or not. And also that I feel like some of us have, I'm just a girl too close to the sun, and now back to thinking women don't need critical thinking skills. So if you're new here, hi, my name is Mel and I make videos about basically anything I like, but it's mostly books. And also this microphone isn't working. I just don't know what to do with my hands, so I'm holding it because this is my second time filming this video because the first time it left a noise, so I'm not using it anymore, but I need something to do with my hands. So I'm just going to hold it. I separated the things that I wanted to talk about in this video into a few categories. The first one would be the history of books and what they represented as a tool of political uprising and also a tool of oppression at the same time. Historically, books are arguably one of the most political things to survive the test of time. Reading itself has been considered always an act of political uprising a lot of times. Reading is what kept almost every single ideology or movement that went against the norm of its time alive. That's why things like book bans exist. Books have been used as also not just a tool of fighting, but also as a tool of oppression, to spread propaganda, to get people to believe in a certain idea that a certain institution wants. So fundamentally, they've always been political. Governments have and still do use books to criminalize people and even sometimes take their lives, whether for reading them or for writing them. So they've always been a political thing from as long as we can remember. An example of that would be, for example, Dostoevsky. In 1849, he was arrested for reading and circulating political essays and books, and he was sentenced to death by the firing squad. And he was on his way to be executed when he was given by the Caesar at the time and only spent 8 years in prison. Or the picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde, and one of the most popular books ever, which was used as evidence against its writer, Oscar Wilde, when he was tried and convicted for crimes related to homosexuality. Fiction as well has always been a political tool. When expressing yourself can have severe consequences, people create fictional words in order to talk about issues in the real one. You can read The Hunger Games and not see the criticism of war and dictatorship that it depicts. You can be a fan of R.F. Kuang and completely ignore her depiction of colonialism and what violence represents in any political uprising. And separate reading from what it's historically been and what is historically represented because you're privileged enough to only look at it that way, especially as a woman.
Not to sound like really stupid, but is the Boston Marathon longer than the LA Marathon?
No, all marathons are the same length. That's like common sense, I fear.
Which gets me to my second point, and it's that your ability to read and choose the books that you want to read right now is a political thing with so much history and fighting behind. One of the most interesting things to me about this whole discourse is the woman subscribing to this idea, because the fact that you have the ability to read right now is a political thing. Like, if it wasn't political, you wouldn't be able to read. You wouldn't have the ability to read. History, education has been one of the things that women has fought the hardest for and then used in order to fight for everything else as well. It's been one of the most, even today, there's still a discourse of, oh, a woman belong to the kitchen, a woman shouldn't be too educated. And a lot of times, those women have paid really high prices, sometimes their own lives, for fighting and trying to get that education, for that right to reading, to books, to having critical thinking. Majority of the women who were tried and convicted of being a witch weren't actually doing magic. They were just well educated and more knowledgeable in that what was believed to be proper for women of their time. They've been villainized and tormented for not staying in the frame of this glorified servant that society expected of them as a proper lady at their time, and the fact that you get to have your escapism and get to read your romantic escapism today is a product of years and years of fighting and suffering of those women who continue to read, to write, and to just fight for their own rights and also the rights of you. Our genres like erotica or horror today exist because of the people who continue to read and write and fight for them when at a time when they were not socially acceptable and especially of proper ladies. As I said, another point is that books are a way of expressing yourself and also experiencing others. Another thing that gets overlooked in this entire discourse to me is what books fundamentally are, which is an art form, and like any other one, they're a way of self-expression, a way to express yourself and also understand other people. By reading books, you put yourself in the shoes of someone or a situation that you might have never experienced in real life. It's empathy and allows you to see things through the lens of others. Big concepts and things like war and racism are no longer just a concept, they become understandable on a human level for you because you see them at what they mean to the everyday life of a one individual, not just as I said, some big words. You see them as what they mean and what they do to the character that you love and cherish, and it helps you understand things that are completely outside your circle of life. Writers use books as a way to make a point. They are a way to criticize things, they're a way to express yourself, there are ways to talk about the things you find interesting about life, the things you enjoy, and spreading that to other people. It's also a way to criticize governments, institutions, beliefs, ideas, individual human beings, and human acts, or even yourself, and also letting other people into that conversation and into that experience and make them also experience it. My final thing is the privileged position of these videos and just having everything be fun and letting people have their fun. God forbid we do any sort of discourse that might be a little bit uncomfortable. Because none of the points I made in this video are just in the past. They still exist and they're very prevalent to most of the world. Women in Afghanistan are completely banned from public spaces and they no longer have any access to education. That is just one of many, many examples. It's not just the only one. Many people to this day are arrested and convicted for reading books, or possessing certain books. The guy these very people voted for because they think he's gonna turn down book prices for some reason, but then if you just do Google search about economy, you kind of understand that no, he's literally banning books from schools because of the propaganda and ideas that he wants to spread that align with his view and his goals basically and the people that he associates with. Books are still political. They will always be, they have always been, and they will continue to be because that's what they represented so much throughout time. Mobbing on TikTok and crying about how other people's expression of their suffering and their experiences makes you uncomfortable because you don't care about anything that doesn't directly affect you is a very privileged thing to do. You can't expect entire communities to just stop using one of the most effective tools of self-expression and uprising as what is historically has been just because, as I said, you can't care about anything that doesn't directly affect you and you want to see everything as a fun, silly little thing to do and want to never use, God forbid, any critical thinking skills. Also, at the same time, expecting those same communities to support you and help you monetize and make money off of reading and money off of books. That was everything I wanted to talk about. It's a 1,000 word page that I wrote on Microsoft and just wanted to yap about it for a while. It was enough for me to drink 2 teas actually. And honestly, it's just such a, at the end of the day, I feel like it's just such a dumb thing to say that books are not political because like if you've ever read fan fiction like written by a 14-year-old in 2013 or like 2015 on Wattpad, in the background of two One Direction members falling in love, there's always issues of women in the workspace being talked about and being discussed. So if a 15-year-old in 2015 understood that reading can be political, I don't think grown-ass women should be crying about it on TikTok. It's just this idea of if something makes me uncomfortable, then you shouldn't talk about it. It's this idea of coming into a space and expecting that entire space to change to make you comfortable instead of understanding your own privilege and making yourself comfortable and kind of aligning with that community, I guess. So yeah, that was the video. As I said, this is the second time I'm recording this. I no longer have a microphone. I need to buy one because this is the third video in a row that this has done to me. But this time I decided to not have a mental breakdown and instead just film it again and fix the audio on Premiere Pro, hopefully. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it interesting, and let me know what you think about this whole discourse. What do you think, as I said, about any of the points that I made? And if you agree, if you don't agree with it, and I hopefully will see you in my next video. Bye.
You're a woman with a brain and reasonable ability. Stop whining and find something to do.